So, back in the early 1900s, miners would carry a tiny canary down into the mine shaft with them, not as a pet, as an alarm system. Toxic gases, carbon monoxide, methane. You can't smell them, you can't see them, but the canary could feel them before you could. And if that bird dropped dead, you didn't form a committee to debate it, you ran. Well, today, California is your canary, and billionaires are running. And look, regardless of what state you live in, at the very least, you should consider placing your sneakers by the front door and preparing to follow. Because national politicians are plotting to franchise California's worst idea ever to every state in the union. They've done it before, and they're doing it again. Originally, the United States of America did not have an income tax. Did you know that? That was kind of the whole point of this country. No taxation without representation. People came here specifically to get away from governments that took everything and controlled everything. And for over 100 years, that's how it worked. In 1913, they introduced a 1% tax on income over $3,000, equivalent to $100,000 in today's dollars. That was considered rich then. But that was it, 1%. And it only amounted to 1% of the population that had to pay it. They swore it would stay small. It would only hit the rich. This was their canary, but nobody ran. And like the toxic gases in the mine, taxes spread to the people. Within 5 years, World War I hit, and the top rate jumped from 7% to 77%. By World War II, 94%. And it wasn't just that the rate went up. The threshold for who paid came down. In 1942, Congress dropped the threshold so low that the number of Americans paying income tax went from 13 million people to 50 million. Almost overnight, one law, one vote, and suddenly tens of millions of people who were told this will never affect you were now writing checks to the IRS. Today, the top rate in California is 53 cents on every dollar, and nearly everyone pays something. You, your neighbor, your kid working at the grocery store. This is the 1% tax that ate America, and it all started with the simple slogan, tax the rich. They're running the same playbook again in California right now. Tax the rich is headed for the November ballot, and it's polling at 52%. 6 billionaires have already left the state, and they took 30% of the taxable wealth with them. $1 trillion gone before the vote even happens. The canaries aren't just dying, they're flying out of the mine as fast as they can to save their lives. And 52% of the population is ignoring the sign. They've got what I'm calling billionaire derangement syndrome. And I get it, it's just billionaires. Who cares? They can afford it. But there's an underlying issue that's even worse. You see, politicians get elected by promising people things they don't have today. That's the entire game. I mean, show me one politician in the last 100 years who got elected by saying, vote for me and I'm gonna do less for you. You can't. That person doesn't exist. So the promises, they stack up year after year, administration after administration. And California played this game like a gambling addict at a blackjack table at 4 a.m. And now the bill is due. But the cookie jar is down to crumbs. The state is sitting on somewhere between $600 billion and $1 trillion in unfunded pension liabilities. These are promises made to public employees, retirement benefits, health care, that were never funded. The money was never there, and promises were made anyway. And now everybody is looking around going, so how are we going to pay for this? They spent $30 billion on a bullet train that goes nowhere. They spent $220 million on a homeless program where it's documented that only six people have successfully been helped off the streets. And the rural broadband program, for the same amount of money they spent, they could have just bought every single citizen a Starlink subscription. Problem solved. But that's not how the promise machine works. The promise machine only goes in one direction, up. Once 51% of voters figure out they can vote themselves benefits paid for by the other 49%, it never reverses. Never. California is proof. I mean, it was Margaret Thatcher who famously said in 1976, "The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money." And California has run out of other people's money. So what do? They don't cut spending. They don't scale back the promises. They find new money. And the November ballot measure does something that's never been done in this country before. Instead of only taxing what you earn, it starts taxing what you own too. Everything you've already paid taxes on, your car, your savings, your investments, including your home. The one asset that's sitting right there on the public record that they can assess and reassess every single year. Yeah, but Matt, they're not gonna actually take my house. I mean, this is America, home of the free, land of the brave. I know, I love my country too, but it might not be the same country here in a minute. Here, let me walk you through how this thing works and where it gets really personal. California just laid out on the table the framework for a billionaire tax. 5% of net worth over $1 billion. That's what they're gonna charge, one time. That's what they say now. And regardless of how you feel about billionaires and how much they get taxed, it's not the tax that matters here. It's the mechanism. You see, the taxes for them, it's a win, for sure. But the real prize built into this proposal is the authority for the state legislature to change the threshold and the rate whenever they want. So 5% on billionaires one time becomes 1% on billionaires every year, which becomes 2% on anyone worth over 10 million bucks, which inevitably becomes a tax on anyone with a net worth over $100,000, and so on, until everyone is taxed, the same course the income tax ran. Here's the part that's really terrifying though. To enforce a wealth tax, the government has to know what you own. Not just your bank account, not just your stocks, everything. What cars do you drive? How much are they worth? Do you own art? What's it appraised at? What's the current market value of your home, your equity, your land, your Pokemon card collection? Every year, you'd have to send the government a complete inventory of everything you own so they can decide how much to take. That's when private property rights functionally end. That's when home ownership ends. Because the government now has the right to assess everything you have and take a percentage. And if you think that kind of massive cataloging system sounds like science fiction, you already live in one. In 1989, 3 private companies started monitoring and cataloging everything you do with your money. Every loan, every payment, every account you open or close. They condensed your entire financial life into a single number between 300 and 850. Your credit score. And here's the beautiful part. The system actively punishes you for being responsible. Pay off a credit card and close it, your score goes down. Never take on debt because you don't need it, score goes down. 1 in 5 reports has serious errors. So you can be financially penalized because their system confused you with someone who shares your name. And then, the same companies who built this system and created these errors, they sell you credit monitoring services to protect you from them. It's a protection racket run by algorithms. That's the private sector version. Now imagine the government doing that, except instead of your credit history, they're inventorying your house, your car, your savings, your deed every single year. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, I own my stuff, they can't just take it. Well, tell that to the people who paid $300 for a Revolve smart home hub back in 2016. Google bought that company. They flipped a switch and killed every single device remotely. $300 paperweights overnight. Samsung has disabled smart fridges during software updates. John Deere won't let farmers fix their own tractors. Tesla remotely disables autopilot features in used cars that people already paid for. Corporate America has already decided ownership is an illusion. The government is just taking notes. Now, here's the part I can't prove, but here's what I think is going on. California is the beta test. This is the pilot program because look at who's watching. Bernie Sanders has called for a national wealth tax. Elizabeth Warren has called for a national wealth tax. AOC, Ro Khanna. These are not fringe politicians. These are people with microphones and voting records. And look, midterms are coming. And in the entire history of this country, the opposing party almost always takes the House and the Senate during midterms. That's not politics, that's a pattern. And face it, Trump's approval ratings are down. The economy hasn't shifted for everyday people the way it was promised. Some of those promises have been walked back. And I'm not here declaring a side. I'm here just reading the room. And the room is saying that the tax the rich team is likely getting the keys back within the next 2 to 3 years. And when they do, the California playbook is already written. It's already tested. And it's polling at 52% in the biggest state in the country. This isn't about left or right. This is about your deed. This is about your stuff. And the window to protect it is right now, not after the next election. Now, you can do with that information what you think is best for you. But if you think the government wouldn't build a massive system to monitor its own citizens just because they could, well, they already did. Operation Chaos. During Vietnam, the CIA indexed over 300,000 American citizens, infiltrated student groups, sent agents posing as journalists into peace organizations, spent millions, ran it for 7 years, found zero evidence of what they were looking for, and kept going anyway. That was the analog version. The digital version is running right now. Edward Snowden blew the whistle on the NSA collecting phone records and internet activity on millions of Americans. Ex-CIA officer John Kirikow, who's been a guest right here on this channel, has confirmed that government surveillance of ordinary citizens, it never stopped. It just got quieter. And it's not just the federal government anymore. County tax assessors are using AI-powered aerial imagery to scan your property from above, detecting new construction, additions, pools, sheds, anything that they can use to reassess your property value and raise your tax bill. They're doing it from a desk even, without ever setting foot on your property. Ring just partnered with Axon to reinstate police access to doorbell footage without the procurement of a warrant. They had over 2,000 police department partnerships before the backlash. Well, they scaled it back, but now it's back, repackaged under a different name. You paid for the camera, you installed it on your house, and law enforcement can request the footage from your front porch, your family, your neighbors, your daily routine, and it ends up in a police database. The infrastructure to monitor you doesn't need a good reason to exist. It just needs a reason to start. And a wealth tax? That's the biggest reason they've ever had. And they start small. They target the people nobody will defend. No one's going to defend the billionaires. Then they lower the threshold and raise the rate. They did it with the income tax, and they'll do it again. So what do you actually do about this? You know, I like to think I've got answers more times than not. And I never want to dump a problem into your lap and just leave it there for you to deal with it on your own. But I really don't know what all this means, and I don't know exactly what there is to do. But I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm building a war chest of more than just money. A diversified war chest of real estate, gold, silver, and some Bitcoin too, because, you just never know. I'm removing my name from the grid as much as I possibly can through trusts, LLCs, and other legal structures. And I'm stripping equity from all of my properties. I'm collecting lines of credit. If you want a short little checklist in greater detail of what I'm doing and the sources I'm using, I'll drop that below in the description. You know, maybe I'm overreacting, and I hope I am, but I do see canaries dying in other coal mines right now outside of California's billionaire mine. Here's how I see it. You can be the person who saw the canary drop and walked out of the mine, or you can be the person who said, it's just one little bird, I'm sure it's nothing. And that's why I pulled this one out here for you to watch next. Canaries are dying everywhere. 6 different proverbial coal mines are on the verge of collapsing, and I break down each one of them right here for you. You should watch it because, we don't stick our heads in the sand. We stand up, we defend. God loves you, and so do I. Take care.